It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studio is my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
What does retirement readiness really look like in 2026? In this episode of the Wise Money Show, we're going to walk you through some key elements every retirement plan should include today, from investment defense and tax diversification to spending discipline and planning for market downturns. That and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
That's right. It's a VUCA world. Volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
And so how do you plan? How do you plan confidently for retirement in a VUCA world and in an uncertain future? We're going to help you with that right now. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can leave questions, engage with us there. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. Okay, so the most dangerous phrase in investing is, it's different this time. We've talked about that a little bit, within the investment world, and is it actually different this time? The question is that a dangerous phrase when it comes to retirement planning? Is there ever a time when you'd say, okay, now it is a little bit different this time. You need to take a different approach with your retirement planning. Guys, what do you think?
I think it absolutely is. I don't think it's a dangerous phrase. I think it's one where
prudent.
It's the safer way for you to be planning, to not assume that retirement's going to look exactly like it did for your parents or your grandparents. I have in my office an artifact. It's the one thing I wanted to inherit from my grandpa and grandma, and specifically my grandpa. It's a plaque that he got when he retired from his employer that he was at for 30-some years. And he retired and received a pension for the rest of his life, and that was just the definition of retirement once upon a time. And it's so different. So I have it as a reminder of him and a reminder that, man, what we do to help people be ready for a very different future than what maybe they observed with their parents and grandparents.
Yeah,
it's crucial.
I mean, you're stating one, stripping emotions out of it. Well, it is different because the rules and the laws change.
Yeah.
Circumstances change, right? Very few people retire with a pension these days. Kevin, what are your thoughts? Is it different this time? Is it okay to think about it and approach retirement that way? That learn from the past, but apply a prudent approach based on where we are today and kind of projecting out what things could look like.
I think it's a good thought exercise to say very definitively it's definitely different this time and how.
Yeah.
And to say it's definitely not different this time and how. As I am recently 58 and getting closer to the age that people retire, and I have an Army buddy. Well, most of my Army buddies are retired because they went into policing and other jobs where you retire, you have your pension.
And you have the pension.
And you live happily ever after. And for me, I would tell you, it does seem like with some of my peers, retirement is shaping up differently than it did for my dad's generation.
I mean, well, think about it. Yeah. People are living longer, so longevity, that's different. Social Security insolvency, we're going to be talking about that. They actually just moved the date up another year for insolvency. Basically, it's going to be insolvent tomorrow, I think is what they said. Just kidding. For those of you that, it's a big deal. We'll be talking about it more. But originally 2035, then 2034, now 2032, the latest report that came out just earlier this spring. So it does feel like it's different. And therefore, do you need to take a different approach?
Yeah.
The 5 factors of retirement, those are not changing. When you're trying to figure out, are you on track for a confident retirement? The approach that you need to take, the analysis that you need to take is you need to go through the 5-factor retirement plan of 5 interrelated variables, or Josh calls them choices. Sometimes they don't feel like it. Sometimes it just feels like inertia. Well, this is what I have to do. I'm obligated. I've got to do this. But these are interdependent, okay? What age do you want to be done? And then life expectancy. So how long is retirement expected to last? What's your retirement spending? So lifestyle in retirement, and that's going to include an analysis of health insurance, right? And whether you're going to have a mortgage, vacations, it's going to include paying debt. It's going to include paying taxes. And then all of that wrapped with inflation. So that's second factor. Third is your retirement income. This, we're going to optimize Social Security. You're going to evaluate, if you have a pension, what are your options there, and then review other retirement income sources. Fourth, that's the biggie. This is the one that everyone sort of just thinks is the one. It's not, but it is one of them. And that is, how much do you have saved up for retirement? And then how much are you saving on an ongoing basis between now and retiring? And then fifth is how much investment risk you're comfortable taking. Making a decision in any one of those is going to impact your choices in the other. The 5 factors, Josh, those are not changing, despite, whether, hey, the outlook is green or no, Social Security, they just fixed it or whatever. Those are still the 5 factors.
That's right. These are still the influencers. These are the things that either you're going to play an active role in making an intentional choice about what age you're going to retire, how much you're going to spend, that sort of thing. Or you may get yourself locked into where you have less flexibility, less choice. A mortgage in retirement would be an example of something that kind of structurally forces you to be spending more money in retirement than maybe you had intended. What about age?
Yeah.
We talk about this one a lot, that a lot of people are surprised that they end up retiring earlier than they thought they would. If the average age that people expect to retire is age 65 right now, but the actual average age that they do retire is about 2.5 to 3 years earlier, 62.
Yeah.
Why would that happen? It's usually something that's out of their control, or they don't have much influence on. Maybe it's a health concern, it's a disability that occurs. Maybe it's something that changes within their company, and they lose their role. That's something that there's a lot of disruption happening right now, technologically, just a lot of industries shifting and changing. And it's part of the reason why we say, hey, can you be ready to retire a little earlier than you intend to be retired, so that you have some flexibility if life does throw some curveballs at you?
So I put a pin in that. We're definitely going to get to it. So 5. So not the 5 factors. Yep, that's hopefully that was helpful to you. But we've got 5 ways that right now you need to approach retirement differently than you have in the past in order to be confident about your retirement right now in 2026. So whether you're hoping to retire this year or in a couple years, I would say even within the next 10 years, lots been changing in the past couple of months, certainly over the next 10 years. But if you're planning to retire in the next 10 years, you need to approach retirement a little bit differently. The first approach that needs to adjust is when you do that 5-factor retirement plan, you then need to have a stress test done. And this is complicated. It's a math analysis called Monte Carlo analysis, statistical regression. And typically, the range that you're shooting for of how many of these of different market circumstances, how many of them come back where you don't run out of money when you input those 5 factors and plan through those 5 factors? Typically, you want to be at least 75% of those trials come back and that you don't run out of money. And if it's 75% to 90%, you're good. Well, now, I don't know, guys. Curious your thoughts, but I personally, if someone's at 75%, I would say you're not quite there. We need to. I would love to see that on the upper end of that, simply because of the volatility, uncertainty that likely could be ahead.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, if someone is somewhere between 75 to 90%, and people say, well, I want to be 100%. I got straight A's all through school. I want to be 100%. And this might not make a ton of sense, but there's unnecessary sacrifice if you start getting north of 90. It just means you could do some things. And when Mike talked about the 5 factors, I would almost call them the 5 levers. So it means you can move one or more of those levers in various directions to achieve a different outcome. And some people might say, I'm not interested in doing that. I love to save and invest, and I don't get joy from spending. I'm not into luxury. I don't fill in the blank. So therefore, let's stack it up. Go ahead. That's great. If you want the retirement plan that works every time, work until you die. Mm-hmm. That's the perfect retirement plan. If you said, no, I want to plan to be able to stop working at some point and live off my various sources of income, including my investments, then it's different.
So, and I think what you're saying is you've got some flexibility in those choices. Therefore, you don't need this analysis to show 100% confidence.
Right.
I would agree. And yet, I'm reluctant on saying 75% is a green light. We're going to pick this back up as well as what else has changed in order for you to be confident about your retirement. We got that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Lindsay, I'm only about 50 seconds over. Okay. Just kidding. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning, and also on podcasts at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations at the same time as well, which is why the content's structured the way that it is. We've got segments and commercial breaks. It's not perfectly fit, but we've got the cameras on, and so you see the in-between segments as well, and hopefully there's some good bonus content for you. But if this is too long or you want something more direct, we've got lots of content right here on this channel, over 2,000 videos in the library. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, leave questions and comments below. Curious your thoughts on, all right, these 5 that we're about to share, the 5 changes in your approach right now in order to be ready for retirement. Is there a 6th? Is there a 7th? How have you changed your approach when it comes to retirement planning in the wake of all of the uncertainty? I'd love to hear that. So leave those comments below. Thanks. All right.
Really
Pardon?
No.
No. Do you know how much over
5 seconds,
No.
I think.
Yeah, it's like 5 seconds.
Okay. I think we need to hit the online calculator because someone is going to say, well, I can calculate that online. I can go into my 401k and calculate that. And my 401k tells me, hey, you got 100% confidence that you can do it. Do we talk about that or not?
We can. Yep. We're going to hit all 5, but we'll.
I do think it should be called a 5-lever retirement plan.
Hey, your job is not to rename. Okay?
All right.
Your job is taken. I resent that comment.
He's the CRO.
All right, here we go. AI is a disruptive force. We've got that on the horizon. We've got healthcare that's been increasing. We've got Social Security changes likely upcoming. We've had loads and loads of tax law changes. Do you need to be taking a different approach in your retirement planning to be confident? Right now in 2026, if you're retiring soon, should you be taking a different approach to your retirement planning? Yes, in 5 specific ways. We're sharing that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there and rate the program there as well. That's helpful feedback for us. We appreciate that. Okay, so yeah, there's 5 factors. Kevin said 5 levers. I actually like that, although we're not renaming it. Sorry, Kevin. Stay in the 5 factors. But these are choices. Like I mentioned, Josh often says, no, these are choices. Well, sometimes you feel forced into one, or your hands are tied. You lose some flexibility in another. But here's why that distinction is really important. Because when you look at those 5 factors, the age you want to be done or ready to retire, how much you plan to spend in retirement, what are your income sources in retirement, how much do you have saved up, and how much investment risk are you comfortable taking? When you mix all of that together, your online calculator, or really your certified financial planner, should then be doing a stress test to say, well, in different market climates, how many of those trials, how many of those, the really good markets, really bad markets, everything in between, did you make it to your life expectancy without running out of money? You want that between 75% confident and 90% confident, because, Kevin, what you were just saying is these are levers. Mm-hmm. So if the worst of the worst market conditions start materializing, you can make some adjustments.
That's right.
However, right now, I would say I'd want you 85% or higher. Mm-hmm. Because on the lower end, AI is a disruption. We should create massive productivity gains. might have some changes to employment. So like it's hard. Anyone who says this, I know what's going to happen with the markets or the economy with AI, they're lying. No one knows, right? No one knows. Or Social Security or national debt or U.S. dollar being the world reserve currency. A lot of uncertainty. Therefore, I would have just a little bit more confidence in your retirement plan than maybe normal.
Yeah. I have some clients who are just reaching retirement right now, and it's very satisfying and amazing work when you get to walk a long time with someone. And I'm remembering back to when we first got started, and we were analyzing this. Their biggest goal was to be debt-free and to be able to march into retirement and have a great life and everything. They were not on pace. They were not ready. Like if we were measuring their confidence level or the probability of success, it was well below the 75% mark. So it doesn't mean that it couldn't have worked. It just means that we would have needed to have all kinds of tailwinds and amazing, great things happen outside of their control, right? And so you're just kind of hoping for the best if your probability of success is too low. We weren't saying it was a 0% probability of success. It was just too low. And so what was the conversation we had back then? It was exactly what you're talking about. What are the trade-offs? What are the things that they could adjust in their approach, in their planning, while they're in their 40s or 50s to have them ready for their 60s and 70s? Mm-hmm. And they were just flowing with so much appreciation because we had some hard conversations a couple decades ago. Mm-hmm. And it set them on a different path because they made some different choices. Yep. They redefined, okay, maybe age 66 is not going to be the retirement age. What if it was 68? That makes a difference. That's a trade-off that they could make. What if they could eliminate their debt and be in a spot where they could handle a little less spending in retirement? What if they could save more on their way to retirement? What if we could get a little bit better growth out of their investments? All these things came together, drove their probability of success up, and now they're confidently marching into retirement and so appreciative that we made changes years ago that made this possible.
Yeah.
And this is where I would encourage you, if you're scoring at 75 and you're hearing this for the first time and you think, oh no, now I gotta make some radical changes to go from 75 to 80 or what have you. If you are at 75 or north of that, you're doing a lot of things right. Yeah. And so the changes are likely micro changes, not huge transformational renovations in your financial life. Now, it is tricky when you sit down with someone and you are looking at their retirement plan for the first time and they have a 30 to 40% probability of success because you almost don't want to show them. But that's the mirror, like you said, Josh. You had the tough conversations to say, hey, you're not going to be able to do this. I remember early on in my career, one of my favorite clients, and they were saving just a little bit of money, and I said, hey, you're going to have to save about $2,500 a month. And this was back when that was a lot of money. And within a year, they were saving $2,500 a month. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, the trajectory and your probability of success scoots right up there. So if you're at 75, that tells me that you've got certain habits. Yep. Because the clients that you were working with, Josh, they dialed in on the habits they needed in order to get it done. And when the tough times have come, and we've seen this, 2008 and other times, as you look at how you adjust these things.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to the person who's listening right now who has wondered about having a coach in their life, someone who might challenge them to do the things that they wouldn't do on their own. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing more satisfying. I love what we do. I think a financial planner has the greatest career imaginable. Prove me wrong, I guess. But here's the thing. When you get to challenge someone to do what is in their best interest and that will move them towards their goals. Mm-hmm. This isn't for your own benefit that you're coaching them. Mm-hmm. And then they take the challenge and do it. Mm-hmm. I just had that experience this past week. Back in the fall, I challenged someone, hey, to be more ready for retirement, we need to pay extra on your mortgage right now because that thing needs to be eliminated. They have a a high-ish mortgage balance and interest rate. If that thing's gone by the time they retire, the numbers all work.
Yeah.
And so we help them figure out, well, what amount extra would you want to be saving or paying on the mortgage to have it done? And they reported when we saw them just this past week, hey, we're doing it. And there was just excitement in their voice. Like, we didn't know if this was going to be possible. And they're doing it, and they're not having to say no to the spring breaks and the fun things too. So it's just fun to have someone in your corner who's challenging you to do a little bit more if that's what it's going to take to achieve your goals.
Yep. So you got to do that work with your CFP. Build out that 5-factor retirement plan. Do that analysis. You guys know how I feel about online calculators. There's garbage in, garbage out. You don't know what's in the guts of those things. You need a full 5-factor retirement plan. We're going to pick that back up. However, the second thing that you need to make, you need to adjust right now in your approach for retirement based on the VUCA world, the volatility that we're seeing right now, and not just in the market, but second is you need to have a clearly defined defense strategy within your portfolio. I would say it like this. The conventional wisdom with investing is the modern portfolio theory. How modern is it? Developed in 1950. And so that is diversify. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. And the thought is, well, those baskets won't all move in the same direction at the same time. Here's the problem, guys. While that is true over long periods of time, when markets are extreme, that's typically when you want diversification to show up the most. And it doesn't fail every time during extreme markets, but it tends to fail a decent amount where, you might hear the phrase risk off. Yeah, investors go risk off, and it's not just U.S. stocks that fall. It's not just large cap stocks that fall. And it's not just stocks in general that fall. It can be stocks, gold, bonds, everything starts moving in the same direction at the same time. Exactly what was promised to you about diversification, when you really need it to work, it can fail. Where are you playing defense in your portfolio right now? Howard Marks, legendary investor, says this is the quintessential decision every investor needs to make. How much offense are you playing and how much defense are you playing right now, especially as you're on the heels of retirement, maybe in retirement? You need to have a very clearly defined defensive strategy. Now, I'm not saying the whole portfolio needs to be defense, but some of it needs to be defense. You need to very clearly say, this is where we're playing offense, this is where we're playing defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we'll talk about how do you kind of feather that in to your overall portfolio, because one of the big risks when you approach retirement is I'm taking, too much risk. This is the portfolio I had throughout my career. It served me well. I'm just going to ride through it in retirement. No. You want to have a clearly defined defense strategy as well. But so that opposite is true as well. Well, now that I'm in retirement, it's all defense all the time. No, you don't want that either. So what's the Goldilocks? What's the right balance to have? We've got that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Yeah, I know I took us up to the edge. Didn't know if you guys had anything to.
No, I couldn't have said it better. So the show notes need to include VUCA and the 5 factors. Can we make sure that happens, Lindsay? Great. So it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
Got it.
And that came from, it was introduced by the U.S. Army War College around 1987. That's when I was serving, so of course it did. To describe the post-Cold War strategic environment. It was later adopted in business, project management, and leadership development to frame modern challenges in strategy, innovation, and organizational change. So it is helpful to call it and say, hey, this is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. How now should we live?
Yeah. All right, here we go. We got to wrap up the second one and hit the third, because it's
we're going to third segment.
Yeah. And we're at the pace we're going, we're going to hit 2 of the 5.
Okay, well, if you can just tighten it up a little bit over there, Mikey B, we can get them all in.
All right, here we go. One of the most important financial decisions you make in your entire life is what is your asset allocation. And connected to that, again, of extreme importance in your finances is, well, how does that investment mix, that allocation shift as you get closer to retirement and as you get in retirement. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. It's different. It's different this time. VUCA, Kevin, you corrected me. So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That was coined in the 80s in military term, and yet I would say it's proven more and more right.
Oh, yeah, it is. And I think it's a description of life and the world from when time began.
Yeah.
It just, it manifests itself in different ways. And the question is, am I undone by living in a VUCA world, or do I have a response to bring order? If I'm channeling Jordan Peterson, I'm starting by making my bed.
But really, can you have confidence in the VUCA world with your finances? You don't know the future. How can you have confidence? And yeah, the second way that you need to approach retirement differently right now, 2026, is you need to make sure you have a clearly defined defensive strategy within your portfolio. We're not talking about the entire portfolio, but part of it. Josh, what are some ways? Again, diversification has its faults. We're not saying don't use diversification, but what are some ways that people can play defense in their portfolio?
Well, yeah, the mix of investments that you choose certainly has bearing on this. And especially when you get into retirement or you're on the edge of retirement, having the right amount of cash in your portfolio, we're going to get into that when we're talking about distribution strategies and everything, but having enough cash to weather the next storm. And we don't know when that's going to hit, but to know confidently that your food and your basic needs in life, your healthcare is going to be covered even if we go into a dip. Being mentally ready for the dip is key as well. I find myself trying to warn clients during the really roaring awesome times. Okay, what would it look like the next time we have a surprise temporary dip in the market? Because for most people, today, right now, you have the most money you've ever had in your life, in your portfolio. And so a dip, even if it was a 10, 15, 20% drop in your portfolio, that's 10 or 15, 20% of maybe the biggest number you've ever had. Yeah. And so it can rock your confidence at times. So having some investments that actually have protection on the downside, where you can limit the losses that occur. We call these buffered strategies, and they define what your outcome might be over a 1-year period of time. Lots of tools exist here to help you know that you've got part of your portfolio that should be solid for you even when others have become volatile.
Yeah, so having the right level of cash, we'll get to that here in just a second. That's got to be a component of the personal pension plan, okay? So that's an area you're playing defense. But then hedging as well. Josh said buffers, and that can be a confusing term. I call it hedging, where, yeah, you can participate on the upside of the market up to a certain limit, but if the market goes down, you've got some defined protection. You're not hoping the protection is there when you need it. It's defined. And so having a layer of that, and then maybe some other strategies as well to complement diversification. How do you make sure that you're taking the right level of risk? Well, not just having diversification of your assets, but diversifying your strategies, cash, hedging, maybe others as well. So the third, we've already sort of touched on it. Third way that you've got to approach retirement differently today in order to be confident, you need to have a flexible withdrawal strategy. A lot of times it's inflexible. Why I have to spend this? Josh, you mentioned, the mortgage. The mortgage is inflexible. So you got to make that payment rain or shine. Right now, with retirement and how volatile things are, I would have a flexible withdrawal strategy, and I would have a realistic spending plan. I just had one of those early conversations. Josh, you mentioned how, years ago you had a conversation with some folks saying, hey, your retirement plan's not on track, and they were able to make some changes. I just had to inform someone that just about a month ago. And the reason was, over time, we had originally built out the 5 factors and the spending level that fit for them. And as we would review this at least once a year, they're still about 10 years off from retirement, I would say, well, your income's gone up, there's inflation. Is this still the right spending number? Oh, yeah, that's the right one. And then the next year, oh, yeah, that's the right one. And in my mind, I'm thinking, their income has grown considerably. They're saving more, but they're spending more as well. And finally, this time, I asked them, and they were like, oh, yeah, we're not spending that anymore. Okay, guys, time to be realistic about what we think you're going to spend in retirement. And when we updated that number, that had a meaningful impact on their confidence rate. And yeah, that's not fun news to deliver. It's not fun news to hear. And yet I'd rather hear that 10 years before retirement than a year before retirement. They're going to make some changes. We talked through, well, how much do you need to save in addition to be able to afford that lifestyle in retirement? And they're going to make some adjustments here.
Yeah, and I still go back to the Bernard paradox and the idea of clean up that balance sheet, because we're talking about saying, hey, let's have enough money in cash, and then you have to figure out, well, how do I feel about bonds, and what kind of rate of return do I need to have to outpace the taxes and inflation? So as you're thinking that through, just make sure you're not cut short. But one of the things that allows you to not be cut short is to have flexibility in the plan, because if your plan is very strict and rigid, I would almost say it becomes brittle, and it is much more breakable than one that is flexible and pliable. And the folks and I remember these conversations in late 2008 were calling and saying, what do we do? And it was confusing because you didn't really know what was happening. But we said, well, if you don't need to go to Florida this year, this might be a good year to take off the year.
Yeah.
And if you've already got the deposit down and you can't get your money back and you need to go. But just be aware that it might be time to take it easy a little bit.
Yeah. So having even those things defined, like when you enter into retirement, there are some non-negotiables that just have to be there, right? You've got to eat, you got to take care of your body, make sure utilities and all that, all the basic needs are there. But there are some items that are your best intentions. Like these are some of your goals. Maybe there's some of your bucket list type items where, man, you want to take a big trip, or you've got a big project around the house, a renovation or something like that. Maybe a major gift that you want to give. To the extent that you are willing to be, I love the word flexible. If you're willing to adjust and pay attention to what kind of environment are we living in right now before we make that decision to part with some cash or to liquidate some investments, that sort of thing. Being willing to adjust, dial down, and then maybe introduce back in, like choose when you're going to buy that next car, that kind of thing. You allow yourself to leave your investments more intact or undisturbed during the dips, and then you have a full or a bigger rebound on the other side, and that's when those things, you more confidently spend the big dollars in that way.
So one of the things you might be familiar with that I think research done in the late 90s was a sustainable withdrawal rate, so the 4% rule. And this is where I wonder, retirement feels different, and you want a confident retirement. Retirement feels different if when you're working with your advisor, you're planning and you're always asking for, well, is it safe to withdraw more? I feel like I need more. Is it safe to withdraw more? Versus the opposite, meaning, am I still okay withdrawing this much? Or do we need to cut? Do we need to reduce it? I wonder, and we're not big believers in, just calculate sustainable withdrawal rate and you're fine. No, 5-factor retirement plan, that leads it. But then typically, all right, well, then that aligns with how much you're withdrawing. Okay, what percentage of that? Okay, you're good. What if your basic lifestyle was a 3% withdrawal rate? And listen, when everything's going great, 4% is just fine, but you're checking in consistently with your advisor, couple times a year. Well, do we need to rein it in to 3%? Is now a time where we should go back and cut down to just basic living expenses? That's the type of flexibility that we're talking about. And how you approach debt in retirement, you can have a confident retirement with debt, still with a mortgage. And I think that's going to be more and more the case as we move forward in the future. However, just know that, like I mentioned, debt is you need to service that debt, whether things are going great in the stock market or not, whether your portfolio is doing great or not. And so it represents part of that inflexible or rigid or brittle part of your finances that Kevin was talking about. So if retirement's still a long way out, maybe being more aggressive on your debt right now can help create more flexibility for you out there in the future. All right, we've got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right, 2 more. Last segment. That flows right into tax diversification, right? Having flexibility, having choice. Okay. Here we go. 4th segment, landing the plane. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as a lot of other content, is right there on the Wise Money YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, turn on notifications right away every time we drop new content, not just this talk show that's there, but next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week are there as well, 8, 10, 12 minutes long, taking a financial concept, helping you apply it to your financial life from a comprehensive financial planning perspective. So go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, rate the program there, leave questions there as well. We appreciate it. All right, so we're talking about the 5 adjustments to your approach that you need to take right now when it comes to retirement in the wake of this being a really volatile and uncertain world. I mentioned, I mentioned AI earlier. It's still way too early to know, well, what sort of disruption is that going to make in the markets, but also in the economy? Same with Social Security, same with government debt, same with geopolitical and global forces as well. You need to approach retirement a little bit more cautious. So oldest child is learning to drive right now. She's got her learner's permit. And the other day we ordered some pizza. And I was like, all right, Carrington, you want to drive? And she's a good driver and has gotten plenty of hours on the road. And I was a little surprised then to find out that confidence has led to overconfidence. So I told her, listen,
fine line, isn't it?
So trying to channel my energy and be productive with it instead of just freak out about everything. I was saying, listen, you have to approach every intersection with caution. This is not all right, I'm going to speed up as I get to that intersection. You need to approach every single one with caution because we had some really fast turns where we got into the different lanes. And if someone brakes right before you or that light turns yellow when you're not expecting it, be a little cautious. Right now is a time where I would just be a little cautious in your finances given all the uncertainty. One of the adjustments in your approach for retirement right now that needs to be a key ingredient is tax diversification. If you show up at retirement and all of your dollars are pre-tax, you're not going to have the flexibility that you'll probably need in a VUCA and an uncertain world. Guys, what else would you add to that?
Well, I think when you're talking about tax diversification, what you're referring to is, do you have all of your investment dollars in an old 401k or in a traditional IRA where there's an IOU to the government attached to it? And every time that you dip into it for just normal living expenses or even the unexpected ones, is it creating income that's going to land on your tax return, which could put you into higher tax bracket than you intended, maybe take away some other tax benefits that you've been receiving, maybe cause more of your Social Security to become taxed. There could be a lot of unintended consequences if you only have one type of income available to you.
I mean, if every time you need a new car and you don't want debt or whatever, or you got to pay for that wedding, or we want to go on a big trip, if every time you've got to mark it up 30%, and that's not because you're in a 30% tax rate, that's how percentages work. If you're in the 22% tax bracket, you probably need to mark up or gross up 30% or so that of that higher number, withhold 22% for taxes, don't forget about state taxes as well, leaves you with the net amount. That just can wreak havoc on your portfolio and the longevity of it.
That's exactly right. It's one of the reasons why we speak so highly of the Roth IRA, which gives you a pool of money that you can dip into and have no taxes attached to it. So the ability, and then there's a third option, which are taxable investments where you maybe pay some capital gains, which could be a much lower tax rate for you, maybe even a 0% tax bracket, depending on where you're falling. So the point is, though, having flexibility on the mix of income that you create for yourself in any given year. And that's why having multiple buckets that you can go to get the needs that you've been saving for, the goals that you've been hoping for, have them funded in the most tax efficient way possible.
Right. You want flexibility built in because we don't know how things are going to change going forward. This ties into the complex and the uncertain. Mm-hmm. And so you say, all right, I'm going to build flexibility into my plan. You said you like that word, Josh. There you go.
So here's the good news. It's not too late. It's not too late. Even if you're showing up and you're listening to this right now and say, I just retired, or I'm planning to retire soon and I don't have enough tax diversification, work with your CFP, do some proactive tax planning right now, some Roth conversions. That the early years of retirement can be really fertile ground to build some tax diversification into your portfolio if you didn't do it throughout your career. So it's not too late. All right, the fifth thing that you need to do and adjust your approach when it comes to retirement planning today to be confident in this uncertain future is you need to stress test your plan in a few very specific ways. We started with saying, well, your normal stress test, the Monte Carlo analysis, our system uses 1,000 different stock market trials, really good, really bad, everything in between. And what's the confidence rate of that? But then after that, you need to apply your own stress testing. And what do I mean by that? Yeah, you need to see how your plan responds to, well, what if Social Security does decline by 20%? What if inflation does run hotter for longer and we see 4% inflation? What if Medicare costs rise faster than overall inflation? What if I live an extra 5 years? Josh, you already mentioned one. What if we have to retire 2 years earlier? You want to build your 5-factor base plan and stress test that against market conditions. You then want to toggle on and off manually. Well, what are some other adjustments that could threaten our plan, and what trade-offs, what would our response be?
Yeah. And all of this can be built into your retirement forecast. These are the types of conversations that your certified financial planner can help guide you through, right? Because when you start planning for retirement, by definition, you're planning for the good times, aren't you? It's the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, it's all roses, and life is great. And you're living your best life with your spouse, everyone's healthy and all of that. But what if any of those variables change? What if one of the two spouses passes away earlier? Does that shake up the confidence of the financial calculation itself? Because when one spouse passes away, one of the Social Security checks goes with them, right?
And your tax rate's double.
That's right. So all of a sudden, the calculus is different. And, being able to adjust to those things, it's good to have the conversation up front about, well, if one of these unexpected events or unanticipated events occurs, what are we going to do in response?
And that's the key thing, because I don't want you to hear that, well, I'll make these adjustments and my plan better still work at 90% or 88%. It won't. It likely won't. It's doing the fire drill to say, if this happens, all right, where can we be flexible? What adjustments do we need to make to stay on track? Or how would we change our planning at that point? So guys, and tell me if I'm missing any. I would do the Social Security change. So insolvency doesn't mean your Social Security goes away or Social Security stops. It just drops. The payout drops to the current funding level, which is, I haven't seen that in the updated report, maybe 77%, 78%, something like that. So about a 22% decline in your Social Security.
They're not going to do it.
I agree.
I believe they will reprioritize.
They'll raise.
That has forever been the third rail, and no one has had the willingness or the courage to address it.
I know. I completely agree.
So
I wonder if that should be, if you at least see what it looks like in your plan.
Sure. Yeah, because imagine the boost to your own confidence if you stress tested your retirement outlook and you said, well, what if we were going to only count on receiving 3/4 of the Social Security dollars that are promised to us? If the plan still works, then confidently move forward with that plan. Retire at the time that you said, spend at the level that you said. And if it turns out that you're exactly right, Kevin, and Social Security is preserved and protected, then you've actually got some cushion built into your portfolio that maybe helps protect you against some other unfortunate or unexpected event.
A higher increase for healthcare costs in retirement than normal inflation, well, that's our base assumption. We inflate healthcare costs at 5%. I'd make sure that you're doing that. That's one stress test. That you live longer and that maybe you have to retire a couple years sooner. Just see what would happen to your plan and what adjustments you would make. One other that I didn't mention earlier is maybe what if you assume that the stock market average performance is a little bit lower than normal moving forward. And we've been saying that for a while because stocks have been running pricey for a while, but they certainly are right now. You want to do that stress test. Those 5 things will help you be more prepared. That approach will help you be more prepared for retirement in light of all the uncertainty that lies ahead. Work with your CFP on that. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Corhorn, all of us at Corhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.